Hey, welcome back to the channel, my fellow weather junkies. I'm your host, meteorologist Greg Majeski, your trusted weather source, bringing the weather without all that social media hype. Here on your Wednesday, April 16th, 2025. Let's go see what we're tracking here for today, as we're expecting a bit of a western snowstorm. It looks like some decent snow amounts coming through the Rocky Mountains. We're going to show you the latest on that from the latest model data there. We're also going to talk about Middle America seeing some severe weather going to be happening over several days. In fact, looks like about 5 days we're going to see the potential for severe weather here, especially across the middle of the country. And I'm really concerned about some of the flooding potential with some of these storms. And then we're also going to talk about a little bit of a temperature spike as we're starting to get later into the spring. You're definitely going to be noticing some warmer temperatures, especially across the south. Now, before we get going into this report, first I want to say thank you to any new subscribers to the channel. And if you haven't yet subscribed, what you waiting for, my friend? Hit that subscribe button in that lower right-hand corner. Hit that notification bell so you're alerted on future content. And as always, if you appreciate this report, please leave me a comment down below. Give me a thumbs up. It does help with the YouTube algorithm. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at the big picture here from coast to coast. We got a little pressure here exiting up toward Canada right now. Pretty quiet here across the eastern third of the United States. We've got high pressure building in here. Got a little weak system up here in the Rockies that's going to be dropping down. That's what's going to be responsible for some of the snow out here as we go through the next several days. We're also watching this little bit of upper level low energy here across California. That's also going to be swinging in, and parts of that's going to be setting off the severe weather in the coming days. All right, let's look at the big picture watches and warnings. Here's a lot of that old man winter stuff here. Got winter weather advisories, winter storm warnings here from Montana down into Wyoming as that little disturbance drops down there. Red flag warnings down here across New Mexico as that upper low kind of swings in here, and a little bit breezy, low humidity could cause some problems there. But eastern third of the United States looking pretty good, except for up there. Got a little bit of snow up across the Great Lakes there we're seeing here for this morning, but pretty quiet across the nation. But yeah, believe it or not, getting some pretty decent snow showing up there on the radar across New York State. In fact, we'll go ahead and take a look at some of that snow going up toward the Syracuse area, coming in there off the lake, and just wow, it's like middle of April. We're ready to say goodbye to winter, and we're having to still deal with this. But don't worry, this will be winding down here a little bit later today, and then we'll see things begin to improve there across New York State. So let's go ahead and break down the Storm Prediction Center breakdown. We got 5 days of severe weather we're going to have to track here for you folks. So we'll begin here with the day one outlook, which is showing that marginal risk for severe weather there. We're talking about Nebraska going back in toward parts of Oklahoma and into Missouri. So you're talking about Kansas City, Omaha, Wichita, Kansas, Lincoln. Those areas are under, again, just a slight risk. You might see an isolated severe thunderstorm or two here for today. Tornado risk is pretty low, just generally just some wind and maybe a little hail there across those two zones. There's your wind hit threat, pretty low, and then there's your hail threat, also running pretty low, running only about 5%. Now, what about your day two outlook? Let's go check out the day two. A little bit bigger area of concern. We got the yellow slight risk there coming into Nebraska, Missouri, and a big portion of Iowa going in toward tomorrow. So going into your Thursday. So we're talking about Omaha, Lincoln, Des Moines, Cedar Rapids, Davenport, all those areas on that slight risk. Kansas City's under the marginal, as well as Minneapolis and over toward Madison. And that's areas in green. So breaking down that threat, tornado risk only running about 2% here for tomorrow, but you kind of see it right through there. Could see an isolated weak spin up with the severe thunderstorm there. And then the wind threat will be running about 5%, and the hail threat a little bit larger as we got a little bit of cold core with this thing. And you can see a bigger area there in yellow with the hail running about 15% into those zones. How about the day three? A little bit bigger area here for your day three. Check out the day three. This one extends all the way from the Great Lakes all the way back down toward Texas there with that slight risk for severe weather. I have to watch this closely. Could be a slight chance we might see a small pocket of enhanced on that zone, but we'll see what happens if we get another day or two closer. And then that's for 3 days, and then we still got 2 more days to watch. Check out the day 4, and then check out the day 5. So we still got 2 more days that we got to watch there for severe weather. So at least for the next 5 days, we're going to be tracking some sort of severe weather across the country. Look, again, we had that very active start there that first week in April. A little bit of a lull. Now it looks like we're starting to spike back up here across the country with the severe weather risks. Now, as we look at our excessive rainfall outflow, this is your day 3. It's going toward Friday, again, with that bigger area of severe weather. We do have to watch for the potential for some flooding. Obviously, that slight risk there across Oklahoma and Missouri, and marginal risk there. Again, these are some same areas that had all that heavy rains earlier in the month. So we're going to get some more rains falling in this area. So we'll have to watch for some flooding in those zones. And the hazard outlook here for the next 3 to 7 days, clearly showing all that active severe weather, all that flooding all up in this same zone. And you see all the rivers here still dealing with the high level marks. So again, throwing heavy rain on the areas that are still trying to get the rivers and creeks to subside. Not really a good thing, but it does appear like on the long-range model run that the precipitation chances as far as the amounts did back off a little bit compared to what I was seeing yesterday, and I'll show you that as we break down the model data here in just a second. So let's go ahead and first take a look at the 500 millibar level. We're going to be looking at the jet stream. That's what drives our weather systems here. All right, so we've got a couple features. We got the one trough here that's bringing in the cold air across the northeast. We're watching this upper level feature here that's going to be swinging in here across the southwest, and we got some energy here across the Intermountain region as well. So let's go ahead and watch this as you watch that timestamp there as we go forward here in time. Again, you got that initial energy here coming down to the Rockies. This is what's going to bring the snow there, and then we're going to watch this upper level feature kind of swing in here out of the southwest. And as that energy swings on up, you see that wind energy, you see the jet energy kind of streak up going into Friday and Saturday. So this will be the zones we'll watch going in, that elongated severe weather threat. We'll watch that very closely as that energy begins to eject on out of the Rockies. And this pushes off toward the east. And then it looks like next week we get a bit of a break going toward Monday. Notice that the flow becomes a little more zonal here across the United States. And then we're going to wait for another piece of energy to come in as we go toward the tail end of this model run here. Here comes the next one here on the West Coast. This is going toward the 25th of April. You're seeing yet another feature, and this will swing on in. This one looks like it's got a little bit different path, but again, keep in mind, this is beyond the 7 day. So we're going to be looking for model trends there. One thing's for sure, we're pretty certain on this initial surge for some active weather going into next week. And then this one, we'll wait and see what the models say on this one. This one kind of tracks a little bit further to the north. So this would be like severe weather further up toward the north, going toward the 29th and 30th of April with this one as we go toward the end of this model run and get ready to go into May. Hard to believe. We're getting ready to rock into May. All right, let's look at the high resolution model. We're going to be looking at the next 40-hour short-term model run, okay? So what we're going to be watching right now is this energy here in the Rockies that's going to be diving down this way and then eventually kind of pull on out. So I'm going to be watching a lot of snow here starting to accumulate here across areas of Montana and breaking out into areas of Wyoming. So you see that snow there increasing there. Got a little disturbance that's going to be firing up that marginal risk for severe weather. Remember, we had that for today. You see that little pocket there by 2 in the morning. So we're talking about overnight here for tonight. So watching that severe weather risk as a little piece of energy comes out of the Rockies, sets that off, and then that kind of races off toward the east. And then we're watching the bigger system. You see it really start to ignite up here as we go throughout the day on Thursday. So this is noon on Thursday. And those by the afternoon, we really kind of fire up that weather here across portions of Wisconsin and Iowa. Again, that's going into your day 2 outlook for severe weather, and still some healthy snows out into the Intermountain region there across Wyoming and going into Colorado as this goes on. This goes up till about 2 o'clock in the morning on Friday. Now we're going to go over to the European. We're going to take it from this point forward, and we'll see how this goes going into this upcoming weekend. So again, we got that snows out here in the west, got the stormy weather here. And then we'll see that, again, more storms are going to flare up here with this next storm system. There it goes, starts to fire up there on your Saturday morning there. We'll kind of watch the storms come on out. And here comes that low starting to charge on out. So this will be watching for the severe weather right through this portion of the country going in toward your Sunday. So Saturday and Sunday we'll have some active weather to watch. And this kind of rotates on up. And then we'll see a little bit of a break next week. Again, we get a little bit of a break. For a little bit. Still got the showers and storms around. We're definitely getting into a little more of an air mass situation here across the south. It looks like a little more moisture down here. Now, kind of a weak systems down here across the southern tier. And then as we go toward the end of the model run, again, we got that another big low. We watched that on the upper low. Here it is, showing up on the 27th, coming into California, bringing some rains, maybe some snows into the Sierra Nevada. And that swings on inland, and then that swings up toward the north. So we'll have to watch that one coming up to the high plains. So this will be going in toward the 29th. We'll have to watch for another round of severe weather here a little bit later into the month. And again, this is long range, and we'll see, we'll look for model trends and see if that is consistent. So one thing we're watching for some definitency is that big low, upper level low that's going to be coming out of California here and setting up the days for severe weather that's going to begin today and going to track all the way into this upcoming weekend. Now, speaking of thunderstorms, I want to show the K-index. I thought this was pretty interesting. K-index kind of measures where you're going to get the thunderstorms that are going to develop across the country, and you kind of see this trend. I want you to look at the trend of just where these storms are kind of firing up. All right, so we're going to have some storms that are going to be kind of training over the same area. So again, that's why I'm worried about some of the flooding risks with some of this. And then this moves on off toward the east, going into early next week. And here's another surge in moisture. Look at the amount of the country. Just start to see it, increased chances of seeing rain and thunderstorms. And by the time we get to the 29th, I'm like, wow, look at this. But you're definitely seeing a spike in activity. So what that's telling me is great opportunities for thunderstorms, and obviously precipitation chances probably running above average. I'll show you the climate outlook here that kind of backs this up on what the K index here is showing here on the latest European model. So definitely look like a little bit wetter pattern as we wrap up the month of April. Now, let's talk about the rainfall here on the short term. We're going to do 72 hours here first. We'll do the next 3 days. I'll stop right here. Sorry, about right there. So it's not looking too bad the next 3 days. You obviously got some snows out here, a little bit of rains out with some of the storms here, but they really start to pick up as we go toward this weekend. Watch this. Boom, really kind of explodes up here going into early next week. So we have to watch for that flooding risk here across Missouri, Iowa, portions of Oklahoma as we go toward the 21st and 22nd. And then as far as the rest of the 7-day, again, showing it wetter, but this is not quite as bad as yesterday, but still quite wet here across the middle portion of the country. Not bad out here in the west. Even some rains out here in California. It's getting kind of late in the season for them to see rain, but they're going to see some rain here as well as we finish up the month of April. Now, as far as the snow is concerned, okay, now let me back this up. I'm going to back to reset this. Obviously, initially, we're getting little snows here. We're seeing this morning across the Great Lakes and areas of up toward Maine. So we're talking about New York State, really, predominantly. That's your short term. But then we're watching this disturbance here through the Rockies going for the next few days, or going into this weekend. Quite a bit of snow here. And as we go ahead and look at the western United States here, I'm going to ship this over here. Again, you're looking up upwards of, I think some localized areas could see up to a foot of snow here across this region here, going not only for this upcoming system, as I take this all the way out. Watch this. We just kind of, boom, we kind of filling some more there. I see a 13-inch here showing up here. There's 11. There's another 9. So definitely skiers delight, late season skiing. Anybody going for some skiing? I mentioned this yesterday. I mentioned it again. Looking still pretty good out there in Colorado and Wyoming to get some skiing in before the end of the season wraps up there. All right, let's go look at the temperature differences here. We're looking at the 850 difference as far as the anomaly. Where's the cold air? Where's the warmer air going on? And one thing you notice is obviously we're starting off kind of below normal here across the Ohio River Valley, kind of warm out here toward the west. So let's watch this as we're going through the duration here. Look at the big warm up here as this big high begins to shift on off the eastern seaboard here. You see the high shifting off here. We get that clockwise flow here coming all around. A big warm up here across the Ohio River Valley as this cold air kind of slams into this. So that's why we're going to see those clash of air masses and the severe weather threat going into Friday and Saturday as that front pushes off toward the east there. And it really stays warm into the southeast. I think some of the southeast into Saturday and Sunday, middle upper 80s, might see some 90s sneak in there as well. And then we'll watch that next system. Again, here's that next clash going in towards Sunday. You see in that dividing line, here's that cold air kind of going into that warm air out ahead of it. And we'll watch for that severe weather there as well. So we got 5 days of this to watch, folks. And this kind of moves on off. And it looks like a lot of the country is going to see things begin to kind of moderate a little bit. Looks like we get colder toward the end of the model run here out toward the west coast. Very warm up here across the high plains. Here's high pressure here across the southeast once again, going up toward the 28th. And we'll take this all the way out. Very warm here across the eastern third of the United States, especially across the Great Lakes. This is really warm at the 5,000-foot level. So looks like we're going to see a spike in the temperatures and things really starting to heat up as we head toward the end of the month. Let's go ahead and wrap this up and take a look at what the Climate Prediction Center is showing here. And it looks like this is pretty much lining up with what we're seeing here on the long-range model runs. Yesterday it was flirting at maybe a cool down here in the east, but like I mentioned yesterday, you're looking for that model consistency, and it wasn't there. So we're going to keep it warm here across the east, near normal, below normal up here across the high plains here, or the Intermountain region. And this kind of holds true. We're not really going to change all that much. And this goes out from the 23rd to the 29th. So it looks like we're going to stay with above normal temperatures predominantly here in the east as we go through the next couple of weeks. Precipitation-wise, this is pretty much lining up very well. Look at this big bullseye here across Texas, Oklahoma, and Arkansas. This is obviously where we're most concerned with some of that severe weather kind of traversing through this area, the 21st to the 25th. And that's going to continue. That big bullseye continues there to the 23rd to the 29th. So this tells me that we got an active weather pattern here. We'll have to watch these zones, especially for severe weather. Flooding will be a problem for some of these areas as well, as looks like we're in store for a more active weather pattern here, kind of starting a little bit today, but really cranking up as we go into this upcoming weekend. So Again, we're into that month. You know, it's April and May. Those are our severe weather months. Things are really starting to ratchet up. Just make sure you stay weather aware and prepared wherever you're at in the country. Now, once again, I'll reiterate this. None of these systems that I'm currently tracking look like they're going to be major outbreaks. When I'm talking about major outbreaks, think of that system like we had back there in mid-March where we had 100 tornadoes, or even the more recent one we had 50 or something tornadoes. Some tornadoes possible, going to have flooding. I'm really concerned about that. And we're talking about localized severe weather. So for the most part, a lot of these systems look like slight, maybe some smaller pockets of enhanced, but I'm not seeing anything like a moderate high risk as far as the current models are projecting here toward the end of the month. So that's some good news there. But again, no matter where you are in the country, we're definitely seeing more and more thunderstorms impacting the country, as I showed you with the K index there. So you make sure you stay weather aware, and the best advice I give you is to please subscribe to this channel, because I like to give it to you straight and I don't hype every storm to death. So if you like that approach, if you'd like to just get good critical weather information without going over the top, please hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell so you're alerted on future content. And as always, if you got any weather questions or you got a concern, please post it down below. I'm more than happy to answer your question. All right, that's y'all's update for today. You guys take it easy, be good, stay safe, and we'll see you next time. You guys have a great day. Bye-bye.